Good evening. Warning of public hearing of the proposed budget for 2019-2020, Regional School District 13 of the State of Connecticut, Durham Middlefield, April 10, 2019, 8 p.m. Notice is hereby given to all those eligible to vote in the towns of Durham and Middlefield, which are the member towns of Regional District 13 of the State of Connecticut. A public hearing will be held and conducted by the Regional District 13 Board of Education on April 10, 2019 at 8 p.m. in the Julian Thayer Auditorium at Coggeshall Regional High School for the following purpose: to present and discuss the proposed budget for the next fiscal year, July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. At such time, any person may recommend the inclusion or deletion of any expenditure. Signed, Robert Moore, Chairman, Regional School District 13, Board of Education, State of Connecticut, dated in Durham, Connecticut, this 29th day of March, 2019. Return of the call. Return is hereby made that the undersigned on the second day of April 2019, cost to be posted on the public signposts in the towns of Durham and Middlefield, a written warning by the Board of Education, and on the second day of April 2019, cost to be published in the Hartford Current, a newspaper having a circulation in the towns of Durham and Middlefield. A like warning of the public hearing on the education budget to be held the 10th day of April 2019. Signed, Robert Moore, Chairman, Regional School District 13, Board of Education.
Just in the interest of time, while Bryden is working to get the slide to project, I can move the microphone and play a few numbers on the piano. Just kidding, I don't play the piano. So welcome everyone. We see familiar faces. I'd like to thank those of you who have been with us throughout the budget process. Each year we kind of identify a theme for the budget that we have created for the following year, and as the board worked this year to make the decision to move towards a single educational approach, it seemed fitting that our theme for the upcoming budget would be Regional School District 13 United, as our efforts to provide the highest quality educational experience to all students was the priority that was identified by the Board of Education along with administration. In addition to that, with moving towards a single educational approach is the proposed closing of another school building, the John Lyons School building. So with that was a capital look at our physical plan needs and capital planning that has been underway for several years and ultimately finalized into a capital plan project, a 6.9 capital planning project that will also be part of the referendum vote. Our budgeting has always been focused on our three strategic experience areas: student achievement, well-being, and engagement. I'll just give some high-level overview of our critical points as we move into next year, and Bob will go over in detail the budget as we usually do at the public hearing. A couple of areas that are significantly impacted our budget as we went through the budget season this year were the request to reduce the budget by the BCS copies to Durham and Middlefield. Although those haven't been finalized, proposed budget has not been finalized. That is part of our budget. Additionally, we basically left staff moving into next year into proposed TRV responsibility taken by the school. And then good news insurance bid process this year that resulted very significant savings for the district and for the district towns. Those savings actually continue to show up until Friday. Another approximately $300,000. So the budget that was voted on by the Board of Education on March 27 can be further adjusted by looking at the savings that we're realizing the additional we'll talk about this evening after he goes through the rest of the budget. In our student achievement is, of course, our most area focus area. Going into next year, we do have some staff in particular in the area of gymnastics, rails, and increase Spanish, slight increase in the program, as a library media center specialist at the elementary. We continue our enhancements, curriculum instruction and assessment, programming, STEAM, additional high school classes, AP computer science, and engineering. Grab my notes for this one. So a million times. Design and build lab, coding and robotics, and integrated. Very excited about those enhancements. Our work in collection and analysis continues as our data dashboard and at the district and down to the teacher level, more specific about looking at the data that we're collecting and making decisions about our students. Our professional learning plan moving into next year targets the areas for administrators and staff for which we feel will have the greatest impact on student learning. Our work for the portrait of the graduate will continue with funding for that, and as we continue our portrait of the graduate work, what we'll be doing is backwards design to determine what academic experiences students should be having in order to assure that we are able to deliver on the guarantee of the portrait of the graduate that we determine. Additionally, moving into next year, we'll be working on understanding and implementation of project-based learning that will be included in our curriculum work. We move into the area of well-being, as Mr. Rossignol had shared, it seems like just yesterday at this very podium, our beginning steps with social emotional learning and support for students, mental health training and support will continue. We continue to work with outside agencies, including Central Connecticut State University. Our safety and security processes and upgrades are underway, including the continuation of the funding for our school resource officer, as well as Kim mentioned in our board meeting, our work on the vestibules. Our equity and diversity training and implementation will continue into next year, and the expansion of well-being efforts through the Board of Education's newly created well-being committee. Finally, in the area of engagement, the Board of Education will continue their CAPE membership to work on board development and support. Our communication plans will be further improved next year. We've done improvements in communication at the school district and Board of Education level. We're also looking at ways to more systemically get feedback from teachers and the community. Our collaboration with towns will continue while we continue to look at what we will do in terms of building disposition for Corn and Lyman schools. We continue our local and state as well as our international partnership next year with our partners from China slated to arrive. We have finalized the date for the Monday after the Durham Fair and our students traveling to Ningbo in March. Our capital improvements, which Bobby Armartino will go over this evening, is an outstanding plan with our debt service falling off in 2022 and 2025 and taking advantage of that and addressing much needed district capital plans. Our continuation of our school alteration plans at both Memorial and Brewster and the costs associated with that will continue next year. And finally, our ongoing creation and communication of our budget processes and the associated state and local influences, which we have talked about in great detail during this budget season. Our budget highlights includes a change from the budget that was proposed initially on February 13th that had a 2.44% gross increase from our current operating budget to tonight's budget, where we see a 0.52% increase. Again, just to summarize it, it incorporates the potential ECS cuts, the allowance for TRB, slight increase in our total staff of a 0.3 full-time equivalency. Our Board of Education recommended class sizes are maintained. And most importantly, we are continuing to focus on our strategic coherence goals and our strategic visioning process as we look at what our improvement strategies are that are aligned with those goals. And finally, included in next year's budget are the support steps that we are using to move towards a district-wide educational approach. Mr. Moore will take us through an overview of the proposed budget by starting with the historical of budget changes over the past 5 years.
Thank you, again, this is where we're having a hearing on the budget that was approved by the board on March 27th. As Dr. Bernice indicated, there's additional savings that occurred only last Friday, and I will address those after we go through the process for the budget that's actually in front of us. So we'll work at that, and the board will have to act on that after this. You can see over the last 5 years, the budget, the gross budget is approximately $500,000 less than it was 5 years ago. And the net budget, the budget on which the town tax is based, is also down about $1 million from, or $800,000 to $900,000 from 5 years ago. I think this has been the direction that this board has taken to ensure that we've had a very stable budget, that we've accommodated the cost reductions, that the town's reductions in ECS grants over the years, and we've affected the savings from the closing of one school. So all these factor into this, plus a very, very tight budget, leading to this year's budget of a minus 1.93% on the basis of the town budget. The individual budget items are here. Salaries, of course, are the first and largest item. They represent salaries for, I think, approximately 295 teachers and faculty and staff.
Yep.
And then and they show that there's a, we have that slide. I'll go back to that in a minute. We also show a reduction in benefits. This is what the primarily with health and dental insurance. These are negotiated changes. We've had a major change in those proposals and really rewarding. Purchase service has gone up a little bit, and I'll go into each one of these in a little more detail as we go through it. But the net budget is $191,000 more than it was in 2018 and 19. On the revenue side, you'll see that the revenue side has been affected by in-house tuition,
has gone down mostly from MPA, and the activities and other funds are up slightly. But the net largest thing is our fund balance carried over from 2007 and 8. It's due to staff leaving, due to some benefits changes, and a variety of other things that occurred during that year. They produced the fund balance that we're using this year to accommodate much of the budget. The other part is that the revenue from special education excess cost goes in, and that gives us another $416,000, bringing the total revenue to $2,217,112, thereby producing a net budget of $34,793,467, or a reduction from last year of almost $700,000. This is again, the budget on which the town tax will be based. Going through the budget and what it looks like, you can see while salaries and purchase services, operating, and other equipment and capital go up. Those are our driving forces, but the saving forces are in non-certified salaries, benefits, buildings and ground and supplies, and debt service remaining constant. So those are the basic drivers of the budget. And looking at it in terms of a pie chart, you obviously see that salaries is 52% of our budget, and benefits another 16%. So almost 3/4 of the budget is dealing with those two items. And I would point out that debt service here is at 4%, and that will come up later as we talk about some of our capital improvement needs. I'd like to go back to the salary, the expense side. Again, in terms of salaries, the first item here, salaries is primarily due to changes, and here's the staffing changes that drive some of it is 0.3 full-time equivalents. And as you said, Kat said before, the math interventionist at Memorial, the math interventionist 0.6 at Cogninshaw, library and media specialist, Spanish and Strong, preschool, and social studies. These are 3.4 full-time equivalents in addition, and negative is a reduction in Latin at the high school, Latin at Strong School of 0.5 to 0.4, a teacher at Memorial, 0.2 at math at the high school, a administrator in central office, and a non-union person also in central office. So those are 3.1 full-time equivalents, leaving a 0.3 addition. The salaries indicated are shown here. They're by category, and as you'll see, the certified salaries is $16,677,000, based on the contracts of 2% increase for teachers and 2.25 for administrators. In addition, on the non-certified salary, a 2% increase for custodians, support staff at 2.25, and nurse 1.5, or about $4,671,000. Those are the driving forces in our salary schedule, and obviously the biggest issues that we have. Going back, benefits, again, the primary benefits are pension, health insurance, and some teacher support for instruction. Again, the savings, the primary savings in that benefits is our health insurance and dental. We also added into our benefits program $114,000, $114,963 that is there to cover the anticipated bill that the town will get for teachers' retirement contribution. Now, we don't know if that's going to pass, but that's been the number that we've been given. Our state senator and our selectmen both asked us to keep that in there in case that is passed out in this year's budget. So there's $114,000 in our benefit program to accommodate teacher retirement contributions so that the town doesn't hit the town budget. Purchase services is the next item, and that's up by $169,000. Purchase services included primarily our professional development for teachers, instructor services for like the trainer at the sports field, some homebound tutors. It also includes professional service, our legal auditors, technology, security, and SRO is in this column. It's reduced from last year, primarily because we had a large amount in there for security last year of $400,000, and it's been reduced only to cover the salary, or the, not the salary, but the compensation of the state police for the SRO. So that's where purchase services is. The next item is buildings and grounds. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's waste disposal, lawn care, snow removal, repairs, and a few leases and things like that. There was a bus lease in it that's been moved away, because we're not leasing that bus, but it's been moved into transportation. So it's a negative $144,000. Operating services includes our transportation. This is the buses. It includes the buses for the regular school and buses for special ed. It includes buses for field trips. It also includes insurance for our buildings, postage, travel. It also includes our tuition for our magnet schools, the tuition for out-of-source special ed students that we have to outsource, and the LOAD program. So it has a very large component of that operating services is distributed over many, many areas, but that's the primary big ones are transportation and special ed. Those are included in that program. Supplies is everything from books, detergent, and anything we need to run the school. And it has, again, going down to savings of the different areas throughout the program. And the next item is capital and debt service. And Bob and Kim is going to go over those quickly. And dues and fees are what they say dues to CAVE, a few other organizations. They're a small amount of them.
Good evening. I'm just going to review the capital responsibilities for the school district. There is capital in both the operating budget, and there is also a $6.9 million bond proposal for the district that will be voted on at the referendum. And I'm going to review both of those at this time. Within the operating budget, what you see here is the $439,000 that's being asked, and these are for projects that are nearing the end of their lives that we don't have enough reserves in place to replace at the time that they're due to be replaced, or they're items that we see as part of our normal operating yearly type replacement. So the first two items is the turf replacement and the track replacement. We've talked about this one for several years. Each year we've put money towards those for the last several years, but we have not been putting enough. And so this year we're looking at $205,000 for the turf replacement and $78,000 for the track replacement. We have yearly $40,000 for classroom furniture. On a regular replacement cycle, that's furniture that just gets worn out. The next line item is the unanticipated building equipment and maintenance reserve. Each of the towns has a reserve fund that they can use for unexpected items that come up. This is pretty much the extent of the school district's reserve, which is $50,000 for those items that may break down in the course of the year. And each year we have had need of that reserve fund, and 50,000, given the number of buildings we have and the size of our facilities, is a rather modest number. IT power supply system in the central office at $23,000, stage flooring, and a new curtain for the auditorium. We all heard tonight at the Board of Ed meeting the wonderful play that was put on, or musical that was put on, Beauty and the Beast, and the curtains that are used to help us with those productions are at way past the end of their useful life and are ready to be replaced. And then in the family consumer science upgrade, $36,000. So that's what's in the operating budget, the $439,000. The next set of expenditures that I'm going to talk about all collectively are in our $6.9 million bonding question that will be on the referendum. And we had a meeting last week in a public hearing on the $6.9 million bond. And looking out at the audience, I see many of you were here for that discussion, so I'm going to step through this very quickly. At the end, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We've broken it up by schools, so you can see where it goes. So district-wide, CRHS and Strong, we have a total of $1 million. The first couple of items on that is the Picket Lane resurfacing and repair, where we had a culvert washout. We did a temporary repair, but we need to put a permanent one in place. Potable water lines for connection, also connecting into the sprinkler system, and replacing the Picket Lane culvert. Those are all need to be done immediately. These $6.9 million represent those projects that are at the end of the useful life. These should have been budgeted over the years. They weren't. We're at the end of the life. If we don't do these projects on the high school and the rest of the $6.9 million, we risk shutting down a school in the middle of the school year. So think about the costs that would go into having to remediate those issues. The other items are ADA upgrades to the auditorium and parking lot, natural gas conversion, which will also provide for cleaner energy use in the school, and potential cost savings over oil. When we look at the bonding at Memorial School, these are the heart and soul of the school. It's the combustion air system, the chilling systems and the coolers on the roofs, LED lighting, which will also provide energy savings, kitchen hood exhaust systems, unit ventilators and rooftop unit. Those are the ones, and the relief pressure exhaust fans. Those are the ones that bring in the proper amount of fresh air into the building so people have a healthy environment to work and learn in. Convert the heating system, steam to hot water, upgrade the heating mechanical. When we say upgrade, this isn't meaning that we're upgrading it for the sake of upgrading. We have a system that's at the end of its useful life that needs to be replaced, and when we replace it, it will be upgraded with a more energy efficient system and a better system and a more reliable system. So that's what we mean by upgraded. Again, these are at the end of useful life. This is $2.875 million. The next set of projects all we'd like to get done next year is in Brewster. This is replacing the 2 boilers, upgrading the heating distribution system, the combustible air system in the boiler room. When we're talking about replacing these systems, many of these systems we can't even get parts for anymore. They're no longer being supported by the manufacturer. So when these systems go down, we're having to put in parts and make sure that they fit in jury rig. We're at the end of the life. These need to be replaced, or we're risking shutting down the school in the middle of the winter if one of these things go. Pressure relief exhaust fans, fire protection sprinkler systems. So this is a life safety issue. Exterior doors. These doors are not very not very serviceable, and if we upgrade them, they will also be hardened, which will also improve the security of the school system at the same time. Septic system survey and repairs, questions came up about that at the last meeting. Because of the increased enrollment we're anticipating in that school with the closing of Lyman, we need to understand if the septic system in its current state can handle the increased student volume at the school. Emergency generator and wiring, pretty self-explanatory. When we move on to Brewster, we're looking at replacing the cooling chiller system, the chilled water piping, the rooftop and air handlers, the gym air handlers, and the building automation systems. Building automation systems are those systems that actually turn our lights off at night, turn the heat on in the morning, and cool it back down at night, cool it over the weekend and the school holidays. Those systems are critical for us to operate efficiently. Otherwise, we'll be spending a lot of money on electricity and utilities that we otherwise wouldn't need to do. So the next slide is showing the combined debt service. And this is the slide that did generate a lot of discussion at the last meeting, and I'd just like to walk you through it very quickly. In the 2018-19 year, which is the year that precedes this graph, our current debt service is $1.493 million, $1,493,757. And that's how much we're spending this year. Next year, that same debt, which is represented by the red line, declines, and it drops down to $1,293,000. So about $200,000 in savings. When we submit for approval the $6.9 million bond, we will be paying in the first year, 19 and 20, we'll pay interest only at $2,929,275. And by paying interest only in 19 and 20, the new debt, which is represented by the blue line on the bottom, will combine and equal what our debt service is this year. And that's the purple line that's running across the top of the graph and declining after that. So as we step through this in 19 and 20, our existing debt service drops to $1.29 million. And then we add in another $0.3 million for the $6.9 million bond to get us back up to the $1.5 million that we're paying today. In 2020, it continues to decline, our existing debt that's already on the books. And that is declining because we've made interest and principal payments, so all that's left is a small amount of the remaining principal on some of the bonds and the interest. That declines and to $1.24 million, and our $6.9 million debt is $2.92, giving a total of $1,493,000. So what we've done is we've made it so that the next 2 years we'll see no increase in taxes due to the increased bonding. So the capital comes in and we're maintaining the debt service at exactly the same amount. In 2021 and 22, the debt service, we retire some of our debt. Some of our bonds are completely paid off. That debt drops down from drops from 1.2 million down to 752,000. And at that point, we start paying principal and interest on the 6.9 million, and that's the step change up that you see in the $6.9 million bond. When you add those two together, our total debt service will then be $1,420,038. That means that our total debt service has come down $70,000. And then each successive year after that, our debt service will continue to come down, our total debt service. If we move forward to 2023 and 2024, we retire another bond that the school district issued, and that takes our existing debt almost in half, from $723,000 to $350,000. And at that time, our total debt now drops to about $1 million, meaning that by 2023-24, our debt service will be $500,000 less than it is today. And then when we move forward to 2025-26, the last of our existing debt drops off. And we have no more of the existing bond. And all that's left for us to pay going forward is the $6.9 million bond at a rate of about $600,000 per year. And so that's where we level out. So that's how we've structured the debt, so that we won't be having to fund this and increase taxes this year or even next. The next slide shows the break in the debt service by community. And in the first 2 years of the debt, it's roughly $100,000 for Middlefield, $200,000 for for Durham, roughly a $300 million, $200,000 for Durham, $100,000 for Middlefield, $300,000 total. And that's for the first 2 years. And then when we have the step up where we're paying both principal and interest, it's $443,000 for Durham, $223,000 for Middlefield, for the total $667,000. And then that continues out. This debt service is, this schedule here is contingent upon the same ratio of students in both communities. We have nothing to indicate that would be any different. So that's the total debt service. At this point, I can turn it back to Bob.
Thanks, Bob. Again, remember that debt service is 4% of the total budget that we're before you tonight, and has stayed at that level. When we looked at the cost of this budget to Durham and Middlefield, it's based on the $34,793,000. It's distributed by population of the students of 1,627, and of that, as you can see, Durham has 1,081 and Middlefield 546, or 66.44 and 33.56. So if you look at the net cost, less the governor's proposed ECS grant, then this is basically what the cost of the towns would be at $20 million for Durham and $9.8 million for the Middlefield. So we've taken the total cost of $34 million, divided between the two towns based on the school population, subtracted the expected ECS grants, which have been reduced, and then produced the net cost to the town this year of in Durham $20 million and Middlefield $9 million. It results in a $227,000 increased cost to Durham over last year, and a $320,000 reduction to Middlefield. Again, that was just the opposite last year. Durham had a savings and Middlefield had an increase. The other item that we talk about often is the amendment budget requirement, or MBR. There are two provisions this year for which we can reduce the MBR. One is declining enrollment, and the other is the expected ECS and grants to the town from the state. Based on the declining enrollment provision, we can reduce the budget from 2018-19 by $592,652, giving us a budget of $33,393. Net budget of that amount. And as we presented this budget, we're looking at a total basically on the MBR of $33,299,000, or $93,000 below the MBR based on. There's an additional provision that we could cut if we wanted to get the ECS grants, but we don't know the cut and the amount that's in that budget. The government budget has not passed. There's a possibility of additional cuts that could be made. The other item that we talked about also is the cost per pupil. These are the different state averages on enrollment and membership. And you can see that the RFP 13 is in the next to last column, showing a decline of additional 21 students for next year. Producing a student net current expenditure per pupil of proposed $21,377. Last year was $21,216. Again, these are estimated numbers because they're not actually calculated until the final expenses are occurred at the end of the following year. So we don't really know, but these are both estimates based on the budget, both for last year and for current year and for next year. That's the per pupil cost expected. Again, this is just a slide that showed the differences in funding to the two towns and the net result of those two of about $780,000. And we've tried to accomplish that. You know, what we've done in this budget is assume the TRB and assume the cost of the ECS reduction. And those two have driven us to these very low numbers in the budget. These are very important dates. May 6th is a district meeting, which we'll do a summary of what we're doing tonight. And then on May 7th is the Corn School referendum at Corn School and at the Field Community Center. Again, the referendum will have two questions on it, the total budget, and because of bonding, it will have the capital budget, the $6.9 million, again, will be incurred in that. That total budget does include the debt service on the $6.9 million because that's how we have to do it. So both of those will be voted on at the referendum. Earlier, Cass said there was additional reduction. If possible, due to the additional savings that were realized on Friday, about $300,000. And I'm recommending to the board to act on this later, that we reduce the gross budget by $191,260. That will bring the total budget expenditure down to $36,819,319, or the same as last year. No increase in the total budget. We will have a 2.47 decrease in the net budget, in which the towns will receive additional savings. So this is another action that the board will have to take in consideration of these additional savings that we've experienced. Again, this just shows you the, again, 5-year analysis with these numbers. If we take into account reducing the budget by another $191,000, it means that the revised budget would be $36,800,000, or almost $1 million less than it was 5 years ago. And in the net budget from $35 million 5 years ago to $34.6 million net reduction to the towns on the net budget. So this is what could occur. The board will have to act on this before we go. And if the board acts positively on this or some other activity based on these savings, that will be what the referendum will be on those numbers, and that will be published tomorrow with the revised numbers, should the board take action on those tonight. The net impact would be, Durham would see an increase of $100,000 and Middlefield would see a decrease of $384,000 in their contributions. And currently the calculation that we have on the non-minimum budget requirement doing this would bring us under the current reduction down to $284,000 below the MBR without any provisions for the ECS account. Again, we don't know what those are yet. So anyway, those are some other positive changes. It would also reduce the student expense, per pupil expense down to $21,258, about $40 more than last year. That's again estimated. So those are our, and this is just some information on class sizes. Those are our, this is a very short summary of the budget. Again, with those changes, without the changes, it's a 0.5 increase in the gross budget with a almost 2% reduction in the net budget. With the additional savings, if we apply them, as I said, it will be an additional 0 increase in the gross budget and a 2.5% reduction in the net budget. So that's the work that the board has done. I grant most of this ability to both Big Kathy Barnesi for their negotiations with our health insurers. You should know that that health insurance reduction also applies to the towns. They receive benefit from that as well. They're part of the same health plans that we have, so both the towns have received benefits as well. So this is, I think a very responsible budget. I really thank the hard work that they've done over the last few months to get us to realize these savings and to secure such an amazing amount of reduction in our insurance. I think it'll help throughout the next couple of years to deal with all of the costs of the school. These benefits will last for quite some time, and we'll see the benefit of that for a long time to come. So with that, that's the end of the summary of the budget. I have much more detail, which I tried to skip over some of it, but I have hours more if you want to go through it. But I think most of you in the audience have been through this budget on many occasions. So thank you very much for coming, and now it's time for questions and comments. And the microphone, I think, is right here. So you have to come stand next to me if you have any comments. If there are no comments, thank you very much. Rick.
With regards to
Come to the microphone so we record it. Can you come to the mic so we can record it?
good evening. For the record, Bob, I was denied, public was denied use of a microphone at one meeting several years ago.
What?
The public was denied use of a microphone.
Oh.
I want to thank the board for bringing this budget to referendum. It's been doing so for a number of years now, but over the history of the school system, that wasn't necessarily the case. The budget can be voted on at the regional meeting. It is a better way to make the budget accessible to the public, and they can have from 6 in the morning to 8 at night to vote. I assume you still have the activity fees in there?
Yes.
Gotta go. There's no place in a public school system in the whole country that should have activity fees. It's inappropriate, it's not fair, it doesn't put everybody on a level playing field. It makes for, could create problems. I know provisions are made, but there's no need of it. If we can't afford it, we don't put it in there. I may not like certain things that go on in the school system, but I fully expect to fund it with my taxes and not have anybody excluded because they're not paying or able to pay. Now, football, I don't know why we retained that program when it was brought to the attention at a district meeting when they were bringing it into the district after we left Vinyl, that one of the members of the public cited the statistics and said we didn't have enrollment that would sustain the program. We brought it in anyway, and the startup costs were over $40,000. It was 40-some-odd thousand to run it. So that year we were over, a little over $80,000 for football. And now it's coming out about the injuries to the head that are cumulative and they're carried forward. The NFL players sued the NFL and were awarded damages for their injuries. I don't know why we're continuing it here, especially when we're now taking in students from other systems. I don't know how many school systems are involved in it besides Durham and Millfield. 2? Why don't we just get rid of it? It has no place. Latin will do students more good than football. It just makes my heart go crazy when they got rid of a football coach at UConn that cost us $5 million. The other thing is, and I asked this question different times over the years, that insert that comes out in the local paper, when it's in there, it's never marked that we're paying for it with tax dollars, or at least paying part of it. I think it should be labeled. I mean, I attributed that as a positive thing to that publication until I found out that I was paying for part of it. I think it's deceptive. Now, all the years we had a part-time athletic director, and all of a sudden we went to, with declining enrollments, we went to a full-time athletic director. That reinforced my belief in the regional system is grab all the money they can, keep the budget as high as they can, as long as they can. I mean, all those years I'd go to those meetings and the enrollment was up, so the budget had to go up. And I haven't seen my tax bill is not reflective of declining enrollments. So at the state level, the funding, what happened last year was terrible when the governor decided to not pull some of the education funds. It didn't come through in the end. It showed you how vulnerable we were to them. And they never have ever had a budget in place when we had a vote on our education budgets. And that's got to change. They got to start assuming some responsibility for the numbers they put out. And when I see in the media the way they're going to generate revenue to cover their expenses, I'm not pleased. We're going to have more gambling. We're going to tax illegal drugs.
Can we stick to our budget?
Huh?
Can we stick to our budget?
Yeah, it's not right. They have a spending problem there. They can learn to live within their means. It's not right. I'm not happy. And you should get rid of those activity fees. There's definitely room in the budget to absorb those costs. I'm not an accountant, but it's wrong. It's not fair.
Thank you, Rick.
And it's not fair if we take in, I don't know what we're charging these other schools for their students that participate in football, but I hope it would be appropriate to the cost of the program. And, you know, do Durham and Millfield students get excluded? So that, you know, are they guaranteed a certain number of places on the team? I mean, I don't know how it works. I don't even want it, but...
We can go over that later.
Huh?
We can go over that later with you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rick. Any other comments? Comment? Mayor Wilson?
Good evening. Well, you gave us enough to chew on tonight between a budget and a bonding issue. It's a lot for one meeting. So I have a few questions, so please bear with me. For one thing, with the additions showing of a library media specialist at the elementary school, seeing as how we're closing Lyman, why are we considering a library media specialist when, you know, could probably move her over or him over. So I have that question. Another thing, I wrote all over this place. Okay, what is Explain Family Consumer Science Upgrade? I'm not aware of that term.
Oh, there's a course on food preparation and chef and teaching that, and it's the kitchen areas. It's like the old home ec when you were in school. That was probably the closest to it. And it's the new kitchen and countertops so that they're safe and sanitary.
Home ec without the sewing.
Right.
Okay.
Cooking. Food preparation.
Well, kind of tied in. And the
Maybe
other
you can give us a good explanation if you want to talk to them later about that.
all right. And now we're bringing back the wood shop, integrated wood shop. Is that going to be back at Strong School like they had it originally, or is that
In the high school.
at the high school? Okay. Now you all know that wood shop, talking about the harbors that football can, child can enjoy from that. The tools with wood shop, I thought one of the reasons why we deleted that from the program initially, and one of the first to go, that in the metal, not the car, not the automobile shop, automotive, was because of the power tools involved in that. I don't know where wood shop plays in for other than a carpentry course, and we have vinyl tech that can accommodate that. So I don't really feel that that's kind of appropriate in looking at funding that we might have a legal action taken against us down the road, which will cost us way more in the end. So I'm not actually pleased with hearing that one tonight. Further, when we all have exchange students coming from whatever country, okay, just being that they are exchange students, does that impact significantly any of the programs or classes at the high school where we might be challenged in meeting the board cap on the number that can be taught in that classroom?
These are all being high school, they'll all be accommodated within the school programs. In addition, the country has offered to pay a tuition for each one of the students that comes here.
Tuition to match the cost of what we're paying, $21,000 per student. How long are they going to be here?
For a week.
Okay. Well, you know where I'm going with this too. I'm not in favor of the China exchange. I mentioned the reasoning behind it at the last meeting. We're a democracy. They're a communist country. Their values are not what we aspire to. I feel we are more apt to have success and support if, in fact, we dealt with one of the nations involved, how do I say it, with peaceful approaches, democracies that also constitute the freedoms that we enjoy, and we know what's even going on now with the possibility of a spy down in Mar-a-Lago. But these are real times, and we can't afford to breach our security. And I don't feel that bringing in students who are almost adults, because at 18 you're considered an adult. It used to be 21, but at 18 now, if you can go fight a war, you should be an adult. But the bottom line is, I still am strongly opposed, and to have reached an agreement without more consideration, I just am asking, what were you thinking? Okay, the $114,000 that's in this budget, because it might be something set down from the state to provide for the teachers' retirement fund. It was mentioned in several articles and on the news already that it probably will not be touched, that we won't be having to do that. So I'd like to see that taken out. We did explain the raises for the teachers were 2%. I didn't get an answer for the question about closing Lyman and the library specialist. What are we doing with that?
We have part-time library media specialists at the elementary school, so there are times when the library is not staffed with the library media specialist. So what we'd like to do is to make sure that we have full-time library media specialists in our elementary schools and in Memorial. And part of that, Danya, that we've talked about in some of the earlier meetings has to do with really kind of a transformation of what we're doing for programming, and something that we don't want to wait on, and we'd like to get that started, even knowing that John Lyman School is slated to close in 2 years. We believe that it's the right decision to make at this time.
Okay, but if you have a part-time now and certain hours are closed, then why aren't we just doing like a 0.6 like we've done with teachers, or a 0.4 to make it the full-time? We decided in looking at across the district, the library media center staffing, and how we're using the existing staff to fill and address the programming needs, that this was the best decision, was to have a full-time person so that they're staying at that school, they're housed, there's someone housed at Brewster and someone housed at Lyman, and a full-time person at Memorial, and that they're not traveling between schools. Okay, I just find it odd, in as much as, we're closing Lyman, so it just, at this time, it doesn't make sense to go for full-time when we don't know the impact overall when there's one less library. Because while we have Lyman, we have that library, and I understand that. So for this upcoming year, if Lyman isn't closed by September, then I don't feel it should be.
Lyman closing will not occur for 2 years.
Okay, so I don't feel it's necessary to be in there now. Okay? Sometimes we can jump the gun, but we can wait too. Okay, unfortunately, it always does appear as fact that the salaries and benefits combined make almost a disproportionate amount of the budget for all the services that need to be provided for the students, the other staffing, and it's just kind of obnoxious that we have all those monies directed for, yes, instruction, but at the same time we've taken away supplies. We've taken away enough programs over the years. And I know with the declining enrollment, people have moved out of town, but I think also what is offered, why people have chosen to go to private schools too, because we've taken away. So when you add on now, again, like I say, I don't think woodshop is something that really needs to be there. But I do feel that practicality, I guess, would play a role more in a choice I would make for a long-range use without having to be a specific profession, and that is automotive, because everybody drives, and if nothing else, you learn how to change your oil and maybe your tire if you were in an emergency. But yet again, I know, again, we took the lift out of the school that we used to have for the automotive, so it wouldn't be like you could just put it back in there like a metal shop or a wood shop, because there's vacant space, so it could happen.
Thank you very much.
No, it's not it. Thank you. There's one other thing I wrote down here. Let me just find it, please. Oh, okay. Understood you mentioned that you'd be looking, Mr. Moore, at grants for the culvert, for Picket Lane, for instance. Until you get such action, you do not apply, correct? That for approval, to go ahead with it.
I don't think I ever said we're getting grants for that, but we're looking at the engineering cost to start that now and looking at how to pave it. The water main will come in and will provide 2 inches of cover over Picket Lane, and we have to replace the culvert while it is occurring.
Okay.
There may be some funding, we will look at that if it's there. I said there might be grants for some of the other construction that we're doing in the school, that there may be grants available, and if they are, we won't bond that much money. So what you're voting on is an authorization to borrow that, but if there are other funds available, it will have to go that high.
Okay, only because the town of Durham did have on Picket Lane culvert done previously. We did get grant monies, and I think you might be aware of that.
Yes.
So that's something that, you know, might have something to work with. And furthermore, when any one of these projects or all of these projects should go forward or several waited on, I would hope each one goes out for substantial bidding, that it isn't just the first one that comes along or 2, without saying we want at least 3 quotes. And as was mentioned by someone else in your meeting the last meeting last week, having to do with, if I recall right, okay,
We have it.
specifications, April 3rd, your last meeting. And when that occurred, and they mentioned having the specs, you know, so you have apples to apples, oranges to oranges, definitely encourage that. Having been aware of bidding processes in my previous life work, it is very important.
That's our procedure.
Pardon?
That's our procedure.
Yeah, well, the town has it fixed so that certain money's amount, when you have $100,000 or something, you have to go to bid. And I don't know if that's your policy, and if it's in your policy, and if it isn't, I hope you would put it in your policy. And as far as maintenance goes, my last comment has to do with the awful condition of Corn School. So the maintenance items, some of these that were addressed in your presentation, didn't surprise me, because in fact, the truth is in the actual physical site, and that was evident and even acknowledged by the consultants and engineers that appraised that particular site. I think a lot of this, quite frankly, has been neglect. And I do feel that even if you start with something again, may you have really intensive and well-intentioned workers that will persist to accommodate the needs that are in their particular purview to address them, and not let it go to where Corn School is. And I do feel that it's a very big expense, maybe necessary, but it also can be, I think, a little bit, how do I say, cut back in the sense of how much you need to proceed with.
Thank you very much, Don. You said this last week, so
I said it last week, but everybody that's here about tonight, excuse me, it's a public hearing, did not hear me last week. And I want to reiterate it,
Okay.
so they do know. This is the way, things have to be heard, have to be said, and has to be acknowledged. And whether you're uncomfortable with it or not, so am I. I'm uncomfortable knowing that people have failed us in regard to sustaining what is supposed to have been taken care of in the first place.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? If not, I'll close this hearing at 9:12. Thank you very much for coming, and we will reconvene back in the board library for the rest of the